Hello and welcome to Vacuuming the Lawn. My name is Paxton Griffith,
And I'm Braden Cummins.
and we're kind of in a different area here. We're on camera now, aren't we?
Yeah, we're on Zoom today.
You can see how ugly we are now. You can put the faces. My mom always said I had a face for the radio, so I think they're finally seeing
she's
that.
right.
Yeah, I think they're finally seeing that. Well, we got a pretty big guest today, don't we? I'm excited about this.
Ryan Patrick from the MASH Matters podcast is here with us today. Ryan, you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, I am thrilled to be here with you fellas. I feel like you brought me on so that you could tap into the senior citizen market. Because you needed an older guest to really hit that demographic and introduce yourself to the senior circuit. So I'm glad to be here. Hi guys, it's good to see you.
How's it going?
Good seeing you.
It's going good. Yeah, my name is Ryan Patrick. I do a podcast called MASH Matters, which I'm sure we'll talk about.
Yeah.
I do a lot of acting too. I've acted with these guys, and I've been doing theater in Southern Illinois area for most of my life. Let's see, I collect autographs. I love the St. Louis Cardinals, even when they stink like they do this year. I am a former amateur magician.
Awesome.
And I love carbs. So I think that's everything, right?
Don't we all?
Yeah, let's say.
Yeah.
Love
Yeah.
that. Yeah. No, it's good seeing you. This is the first time I've seen you in a long time, it feels like.
Yeah. Yeah, we keep up on social media, but
Yeah.
we haven't seen each other in a long time. Yeah, yeah.
It's funny too because it feels like we're kind of in COVID with Zoom. It just feels a little weird to be back on Zoom. That was what my senior year was of high school, so I just feel like I'm back in like my high school days.
Yeah,
I know. Zoom is great in doses. I mean, we all kind of got burnt out on it, but it is a great tool. It really is. It's a handy tool to have, especially for introverts like myself, because I can see friends without having to actually see friends, you know, and if I need to, I can mute them, and I can also just accidentally act like my Wi-Fi is cutting out and just leave the meeting. So, it's really nice. It's great.
I was very good at that in high school. I had a lot of bad connection days during class.
Brian, we did a month ago. Yeah. We're in Fiddler on the Roof. I was Tevye, I was Perchik. That was what, our third show together at that point?
That was, I think you and I have done 3 shows now, and Paxton, you and I just did the one. But yeah, that was a lot of fun. I hope I'm speaking for myself. It was a lot of fun. I love Fiddler on the Roof. It's my favorite all-time show. This was an opportunity for me. This was actually the 3rd time I had done the show. And a 3rd time I got to play what is my favorite character of all time, Tevye. And it's just now I'm the actual age that I'm supposed to be to play Tevye. So, it all comes together. It's full circle, the circle of life.
It really is. I think you posted that on Facebook of all 3 pictures of you as it. So that was really cool. It's pretty cool too that you kind of, at certain points, it wasn't like you did it all, within 3 years' time. It was like at different points in your life that you got to tap back into your favorite part. So I think that's really cool.
Yeah, it is cool because, I did it in high school. And when I'm in high school, I'm still just a kid, and I have no idea what there are some really big life lessons in Fiddler and themes. And when you're a kid, you tend to just kind of see yourself in the kids in the show. And then the next time I did it, I had just had my daughter. And so I was starting to see it as a young couple who was just starting a family. And now I'm doing it now. And my oldest daughter is in college, and, soon will be, leaving the nest. And I'm now at that age where I feel like I've been on this lifelong journey with the character, and experience these things along with the character along the way. It was really amazing.
Well, we were in Fiddler, and the first show we did together was Spelling Bee.
Yeah.
Show was something else.
That's one of those shows where when I first heard it, I was like, oh God, I don't know what I'm gonna get myself into. But by the time it was so happy I had done, it was the funnest thing I've ever been a part of. I think it was so fun.
I enjoyed my time in that show a lot, and I was kind of in the same boat as Paxton whenever we when I heard about it, I was like, I've only heard a few things about this show. You know, I don't really know where I would, because like I said in the first episode, I auditioned for Leaf, and glad Paxton got it. And I'm glad that I got Barfay because once it all came together,
it made more sense that way.
It did.
Yeah.
And then
Right.
you were one of the best improvisers that I have ever met. And it just the amount of times that I've thought in my head, how in the hell did he get that? How did he come to that conclusion? But I definitely like to congratulate you on that, because
Oh, thanks. That is a fun show, and I had done that show once before too, before doing it with you guys. And that show, if the listeners have not seen that show, first of all, it's a beautiful show. It's very funny. It's touching. It's funny. You'll laugh, you'll cry. I mean, it is one of those kinds of shows. But there is an improv aspect to it, because you pull people out of the audience to come up and actually, be a part of the spelling bee. And my character is the one who has to get them off stage somehow. And so every show is a little bit different. There's no show that's exactly alike. And I fell in love with that. I remember watching the Tony Awards when that was nominated, when it was first out, and saying, what is this? What is, and then I was able to get the script, and I read the script. And I'm like, this is amazing. And it's one of those shows that a lot of people still don't know it.
Yeah.
When they see it, after they see it, they're like, I love this show. I absolutely love this show.
Yeah. I agree. It is that's how I felt, because I was like, when I did the show, I read up until Leaf got eliminated, and then I stopped reading, so I was like, I'm just going to, so I think it was until like 2 weeks before the show when I actually found out who won the spelling bee. Like, I didn't know who actually won it until like 2 weeks before. But once I watched that first time sitting there, I was like, oh my, like, this is a great musical. The music's good. It's lighthearted, but it's funny. It's also touching, and it's real.
Like, every character's a blast.
Yeah.
There's not a character in that show.
No, there's not.
I had a great opportunity. So back in 2015, my wife and I went to New York City, and that was my first trip to New York. My entire life, I wanted to go to New York. And so we decided that was the summer we were going to go to New York. And so we bought tickets for several shows, and we got, I think we saw 4 shows while we were there. And so we had to show, and on Broadway, Monday nights are typically dark. Like, they don't have shows on Monday nights. And so we were going to get into town on that Monday, and we knew that we weren't going to have a show that night. Well, a few weeks before we went to New York, I'm online, and I see that on the Monday night that we are coming into town, there was a benefit performance, a 10-year reunion of the original cast of the 25th annual Putnam County Spelling Bee. And I jumped on and got tickets to that, and we went to that. And it was amazing, because it was all of the original cast members coming back and performing. And then afterwards, outside, I ran into Jay Reese, who played the original Vice Principal Panch, who I played. And I talked to him for a minute, and I said, hey, I just wanted to let you know I've played your part. And he said, oh yeah? He goes, I'm sorry you didn't have a song. That's my fault.
Yeah.
I said, what? And he goes, yeah. He goes, I'm not a singer. I'm not a good singer. So we didn't write a song for the Vice Principal. And I'm like, hey, it's all right. I'm not a great singer either, so it's perfect. But yeah, I thought that was interesting, that the reason that character doesn't have a song is because the original guy who did it couldn't sing.
Saw a video of that. Wasn't the girl who played Logan, wasn't she pregnant at the time that she?
Yes.
So she was, however aged. But she was pregnant, and I thought that was hilarious. Like, it was.
Yes. So instead of the father pouring Pepsi on the stage, her water breaks.
Gosh.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was good.
Saying that they have a really good cast there of people, because I think when COVID first hit, they did like a Zoom meeting with that group together, and like they played their characters how they would have on stage, and it was funny to watch. So I can only imagine what that would have been like to see a 10-year anniversary.
Yeah.
It was incredible. Yeah.
With that show, there's a lot to be said. I took a class on the principles of play. because I was going to be a theater education major at Illinois State, and that show is just the pinnacle of that idea. Like, you get to go on stage and act like a child for in our case. In your case, you were the one of the only two adults.
Yeah.
But
I was playing myself, really. I'm, curmudgeon old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was fun to just go up there and just be a kid. Like, especially after COVID, it was just a very, very breath of fresh air. Because
that's just theater, man. I mean, you get to for a couple of hours a night, you get to be somebody completely not you.
Yeah.
And I mean, you can. It's so exciting to be able to walk out and just try things and be in the shoes of somebody who you are not, who might be the exact opposite of who you are. I've played a lot of roles through the years, and I've played some that are very much like me, and I've played some that are nowhere near like me. And every role you learn something, and you go out there and you try to find empathy for the character, and you try to have fun doing it. And you don't have, you might have all kinds of stuff going on in your own life, but you check it at the door and you walk out on stage, and now you have their problems. But it's but you get to be somebody else. It's amazing, and for people who have never experienced that, I wish everybody could experience that. The three of us know what it's like to walk out on stage and that rush that you feel in front of an audience. It's hard to explain that to somebody who's never experienced that. And I wish everybody could experience that.
Yeah. No, I agree 100%. It's such, because I have cousins who have always asked me, like, what's that feeling like? And I'm like, you really can't explain it, because I played sports, and it doesn't feel like hitting a game winner or hitting a home run. Like, it's just, that's a feeling you get on stage when you crushed it and it went well. Like, it lingers on you for a while, and you just gets you feeling really good. So yeah, I agree 100%.
Laughter from an audience is one of the most validating things in the world.
Oh, it's intoxicating. Yeah, absolutely.
With that being said, the next show that we were in was Addams Family. Now, Paxton Paxton was in the show, and he was going to be playing Pugsley. And then things happened in life, and Paxton had to quit. But Ryan and we both finished out the show. I was Gomez, and he was Uncle Fester. And that show was one of those that's a character that doesn't really have anything that pertains to me in life. But it was
that character doesn't pertain to anybody in life, really. You were fantastic, by the way. I mean, I've told you that in person, but I want your adoring audience to know that Braden was an amazing Gomez. You really were. That was a fun show. That you going back to playing somebody you're not. I mean, Uncle Fester. Good Lord.
Yeah, that's not an uncle of someone's.
Yeah, right.
Nobody knows who or what he is, but I had fun with it, and and that's all you can do is just go out and find things with the character. You don't, the thing with too about the Addams Family is it's so well known, and people have been used to these actors, these well-known actors playing these roles, and you have to, as an actor, try to find some new things that they haven't already seen. So that's a challenge, but I think as a cast, I think we did a pretty good job with that.
And we had a very, very solid cast for that show. Yeah. Everybody had their own personalities in each character, and I really enjoyed building that show with everybody, even when Paxton was there.
With my
with the fat suit that you wore for a day.
Yeah.
and you fully committed. You shaved your head for the role, didn't you?
I did. I shaved the beard, and I shaved the head and everything. It was a freaky thing. I don't look good. It is not a good look.
Well, you were also not a good look. From the top of your neck down, weren't you?
Yeah.
That's funny.
It was a blast, though.
So we've been talking about recent stuff. I kind of want to talk about what got you into all of this in the beginning, because when I talk about you to people, because I talk about you because I mean I find you very interesting, and I really have. I know we've only done really one show together, but the one show we did together, I've always said like you were one of the best actors I've worked with. Just the way you're on stage and how good you are, and so I just want to talk about what got you like what started you out on the road of just acting and then radio and what you do now.
Well, first of all, that's very nice of you to say. Thank you. I, when I was a kid, there weren't as many opportunities for kids in the Southern Illinois to do theater. It just didn't happen. And so I didn't do theater when I was a kid. My first show, I was actually in 6th grade, the first time I stepped foot onto a stage. And that was, I grew up in Carterville, a small town here in Southern Illinois. And one year is my 6th grade year, going into 6th grade, I think. They did a community-wide kind of, a talent show, kind of a variety show. And I participated in 2 little skits and numbers in that. And that was the first time I had ever done it. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is incredible. It was amazing. And so, but then again, there just weren't opportunities. There were no kids theater, our schools at the time did not have theater departments like the junior high or anything. So it wasn't until high school when I really started doing some shows. And like my sophomore year of high school is when I finally was able to get involved with musicals. And my first musical was Little Abner. And then we did The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, I think was the first play I was involved with. And I had a very small part, but I loved it. I just ate it up. And so the next year in high school, we did The Sound of Music, and I was Captain Von Trapp. Yeah. And then my senior year is when we did Fiddler. And so early on, it's just those shows and the theater teachers I had and the music teachers I had at Carterville, Sherry Hunter, Connie Church, Gayla Baker, they were instrumental in introducing me to this and encouraging me. When I was little, I was 7 years old when my mom and dad gave me an audio cassette. And for all you youngsters out there, you Google an audio cassette, and there was these hard little cases, and you put them in this big old black tape player, and that's how you listen to stuff. But they gave me an audio cassette tape of an old time radio show. It was George Burns and Gracie Allen. And I just fell in love with that. And I listened to it over and over and over again. And then I bought some more tapes and listened to them over and over and over again. And then I would start taking blank tapes and recording my own shows. And I would make funny voices and I would do funny things. And so I had all these little tapes that I was recording. And that was kind of my start. But I really didn't get to use all of that until later in high school. And then in college, I just started doing theater all the time. And really have been doing it ever since. I had to take a little bit of a break there, and about 15 years ago or so, I took a couple of years off. But for the most part, I've been doing theater ever since high school, because it's one of the few things I think I'm kind of good at. I'm not good at. There are so many things I suck at. But theater is something that not only do I feel like I'm good at, but I really truly enjoy it. Like I don't feel alive like I do anywhere else than on stage. And so I had an opportunity to, when I thought I was going to be a theater major. I went to after Johnny Logan, I went to SIU for 2 semesters in the theater department, and then I had an opportunity to go a different career path, and I got into radio, and I didn't pursue the theater. But in a way, I'm kind of glad I didn't, because I'm not a risk taker. And so I've never been the type to jump and wait for the net to appear, or I never had the, as much as I love theater, I just never had the drive to go and make it a living. So I'm thankful that I've been able to continue doing it, never been paid a dime for it. And that's fine, because I love it. it's what I do. It's just it's where I have fun. It's where I've, most of my friends that my closest friends have come through theater, and I met my wife while doing theater. I mean, everything kind of ties back to theater. And had I tried to pursue it for a living, I don't know where I'd be. I honestly don't know. I don't know if I would have made it or not. And I don't regret that. I really don't, because I still get to do it, and I have fun doing it.
Yeah.
That was like a 20-minute long answer to a 1-minute question.
Beautiful.
I apologize.
No, it was
That's
beautifully
perfect.
said.
So you said that you kind of just got thrown into radio. You got another opportunity. Would you like to tell us a little bit about that? Because we know you've worked with radio for a really long time. And so just about how that opportunity came to you, how you took it.
Well, that opportunity actually came to me through theater. So I had done some shows out at Johnny Logan. And one of the shows that let me backtrack a little bit. My best friend, his name is Tim Miles. He and I met doing theater, our first college show together back in 30 years ago next month, actually. And we had done a lot of shows together. Tim, he had started working at the radio station, doing some production work and, some covering some on-air shifts and things like that. So I knew the general manager because I did theater with him. The operations manager had done a little bit of theater. I knew them also through Tim. But the one who I connected with was a gentleman named Pat Benton, who was the morning show host on Z100 for many years. He was a wildly popular morning show here in Southern Illinois. And I didn't really know Pat. I had met him, but I didn't know him. But he had come and seen some of our shows. And I was waiting tables at the time. And I happened one night to wait table on Pat at the restaurant. And Pat told me that the overnight guy had just gotten fired at Z100. And he said, you should talk to Scotty. Scotty Cox at the time was the operations manager. He said, you should talk to Scotty. Maybe, you're good. You should do that. And I never really, even though I loved listening to radio and always have been fascinated with, just all aspects of entertainment, I had never really thought about doing radio, being a part of radio. And so I thought, well, that might be interesting. So I went and talked to Scotty, and he said, yeah, we can give you a shot. And so I started working overnights on Z100 FM, and which is a big, it was and it still is the #1 country station here in our area. And overnights, back then, everything was running off a CD. And so you had to have somebody in there all times to run the station. And so I would come in I would work, basically I would go to school. I would leave my school and go to work at the restaurant, leave work at the restaurant, go work overnights at the radio station, go home and sleep for about 2 hours, then start the whole thing over again. And yeah, it was something. But I learned so much. And over time, I really got to know Pat, because Pat would come in to start his morning show. He would relieve me. And so we kind of got to know each other. And he started having Tim and I kind of come in and just goof around with him on his morning show. That turned into us staying on his morning show for several years. Awesome. And I ended up being the co-host of the morning show. After that, Pat left the station, and I continued to work mornings with Scotty and Julie. And then I had the opportunity to become the creative director. So I was in charge of all the commercials, basically, because I was working in production at the same time that I was on the air. And so from December of 96 until May of 2011, I was always on the air on Z100. There was never a time where I wasn't on the air at some point. And I'm sorry that my dog is barking outside. So if that's a noise, I apologize. He's either barking at a leaf blowing across the yard or a burglar. It sounds the same. But anyway, I was always part of that, and so I worked behind the scenes with the creative department, and I also worked on air. And it was a ride, man. It really was. I'm glad I did it. I don't miss it. I don't miss it at all, really. But I'm glad that I had that experience.
And then I was about to say, there's a lot of groundwork that goes into radio that people don't really realize at the top layer of looking at it. And for how you did, because I did radio for 4 or 5 months right before I went to California. And that was a real eye opener for me. It was really like, okay, you really do have to do a lot for yourself here. You're gonna have to push, you're gonna have to work hard. And it doesn't stop when the show ends when you're doing radio. And some people think that. So that's one of those jobs where the hours are long and you can feel every hour you're working. So
yes.
Also at a radio station. I worked for WEBQ in Harrison. But for us, we didn't really do any like radio shows or anything like that. It was mostly just broadcasting local sports. But I was a board operator, so I would plug in the circuits and the feeds, and I would press play on the automated set of songs that we were going through. But it was a really fun job. Really awesome sitting in front of that huge board and hitting the button. A
lot of power behind that button.
One day, I got a little anxious about it. I had one of the things for your car, the FM transmitters, where you could basically set a station of the radio to your car and play Bluetooth through there. Well, we were in there and it was like 2 a.m. And so we were playing and I was like, no one's listening. So I just to see if I could get it to work, I went in and I plugged that Bluetooth transmitter in there and I started playing just random songs from, I'm pretty sure I played Barbie Girl. I definitely played half of the Addams Family soundtrack, which if someone caught on to that, I would have gotten in so much trouble. But I was
heavy fines too coming someone's way,
and they still don't know that I did that. So
they do now.
They do. What are they gonna do? But it was a lot of fun. It was me and my friend Trey, who also worked there. We were just messing around. We thought it'd be funny. Trey would also go on the air in the middle of like we would have fun and we would go in at like 2 a.m. when we weren't supposed to be there, but we would go in and be like, let's play like we're radio hosts. So we would just pull up the mic and just start talking about random things throughout the day.
Just imagine one person probably driving to work.
The one person listening in the morning.
There's always somebody listening. Always somebody. Yeah.
Never doubt that somebody.
Yeah.
No matter what you're.
So, do you want to tell us a little bit about what you're doing now?
So like I said, I was the creative director for many years at River Radio. So I was in charge of commercials for not just Z100, but all of the radio stations there. And over time, I learned a lot of things. I was kind of self-taught with marketing. My buddy Tim and I worked together, and he was very good at it too. And we just really started learning from some of the giants in radio creative and advertising. And one of the guys who we really admired was a gentleman named Roy H. Williams, who wrote a series of books called The Wizard of Ads. It's the Wizard of Ads trilogy. And he was a New York Times bestselling author. And he really, when it comes to advertising and radio advertising, he was like on the Mount Rushmore. And he runs a school down in Austin, Texas, called Wizard Academy. And we had always wanted to go down there and take one of his classes. And finally, Tim was able to do so. And I was able to do so a couple of years later. And we made an impression on Roy. So Roy has what is called the Wizard of Ads Partners. And it sounds like a pyramid scheme, but I guarantee it's not. There are 70 of us around the world now. But basically, we work with Roy, and we're official Wizard of Ads partners. Tim and I were both invited to become partners. You have to be personally invited by Roy to do it. And so we became partners. Tim's been a partner for a few years before I became a partner in 2010. And there got to be a point at the radio station where I was getting burnt out. I was tired. I knew I had gone as far as I could go. with what I was doing, and I wasn't going to make any more money. I was doing a lot of work for very little money, which is what radio is, honestly. And if anybody's interested in radio and they're doing it for money, the only way to do that is in sales. That's the only way. You're not going to go in and make a Howard Stern money. It's not going to happen. You're not going to make much money at all, unless you're on the sales side. And so I decided to step away from radio and start working marketing on my own. And my buddy Tim had been doing it for several years on his own, and he needed help. And so I kind of joined forces with him, and we've now been working together for 12 years now, since I left the radio station. And I am so glad I did. Because I still work in marketing. I do a lot of writing. I do a lot of radio production. I do a lot of editing. But now I'm not doing it for just anybody who wanted to write a check to the radio station. I'm doing it for clients who appreciate the work and able to, say yes to some clients and no to others. And that's a really freeing experience. So now I'm getting to work, and we work with clients all over the country. And really just, every day is a little different, and it's just like any job. You have good days, you have bad days. You have some clients that are dreams and other clients that are, pills. And, but in the long run, I was so stressed out by the time I left radio. It was affecting my health. It was affecting everything. And it was the best decision I made. At the time, I was scared to death because I didn't know what was going to happen.
Did you do that?
But,
I mean,
yeah. I stepped out in faith, and I've never looked back. And I'm so thankful because my schedule is flexible. I work from home. I get to work with my best friend. He lives down in Tennessee, but we Zoom, and we meet with our clients online, and it's so much better than where I was. But I wouldn't be where I was if I hadn't worked in radio and learned from some of the best people in radio. And I wouldn't be in radio unless I did theater. Because it all ties back to theater. And everything good that happened in my life, that's happened in my life, is tied to theater in some way.
And your job is still somewhat of a creative outlet as well. You gotta keep creative wit about you. So that's really awesome.
I'm about to say, like you said too, I've always told anyone who's asked me about theater, like there's so many different avenues with theater, like that you can do, like, because I'm going to school for acting, and people ask me like, is that what you want to do? And I'm like, honestly, right now, I would love to act, but given any opportunity to produce or to do something else, I would do that in a heartbeat. And that's what it is with the things we type to do. Like you probably never expected you would do radio, and then you did it for so long. And then you say you're not a risk taker, but I mean, that's pretty risky. You went to Texas and took that class and made an impression on it. I mean, you took some risks there. Easy. So
I have, and I just in general, I've never been the risk taker. I will stop myself from doing a lot of things. And I'm thankful that there was one time in my life where I wasn't, and wasn't afraid to walk away. And I'm so glad I did. I mean, I can't imagine where I would be right now if I hadn't left where I was back then. I love the people. Well, I loved most of the people I worked with. But the work is hard, and you work a lot for very little money. And it was not, and that I feel like I left at the right time, because more and more cuts happen every year with radio, and because you can get people to voice track a shift from anywhere in the country. A lot of the radio that you're hearing may sound like somebody's local, but they're actually recorded, and it may not even be somebody here. It may be somebody in Wyoming who's recording that, here. So I feel like I got out at the right time, but I'm still working in radio because I do a lot of radio production. So but I'm just on the other side of it.
Yeah. And so we've talked about radio and Wizards of Ads, obviously, but I think it's time we get into the MASH Matters podcast, because that's something that you're on too, and it's really successful as well. And we've listened to a few episodes, and I really enjoy it.
Oh, as have I. I've enjoyed every minute that I've do it.
And I'll say this, and this, you may not like this, but I've never seen one episode of MASH, but I've 5 episodes of yours podcast about it, and I've enjoyed every episode. Yeah. So that if that tells you anything, then you need to listen to it.
I appreciate that. I think, so I've watched MASH my entire life. I was 8 years old when it went off the air. So I remember watching the finale and then going in my room and crying my eyes out because it was saying goodbye to a family, basically. And then in college, they were, high school and college, they were reruns on the local channel. So I would tape them on, the VCR, and I would, I was numbering them and trying to get all of the episodes, and I was able to finally get them all, and then they started releasing them on DVD right after I got, done with all those VHS tapes, darn it. But I've just loved MASH throughout the years. So back in 1999, 98 or 99, when I was working on the radio, I was on the morning show, and we would get these catalogs, and in the catalogs were potential guests. Like, hey, this person's written a book, this person's doing this. If you're interested in interviewing them, here, call this number or email this or whatever. And I'm thumbing through, and I see a MASH cookbook has been written by the guy who played Private Igor, the cook on MASH. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is my favorite show. I love the show. He has always actually been one of my favorite characters on the show. We've got to get him on the show, So I reached out, the email, and got a response back saying, yeah, we'd love to have, Jeff would love to be on the show with you guys, the morning show. And he was on the phone, but still we connected. He was a guest on the show, and we talked to him a lot that morning, and he and I just stayed in touch after that, like via email. We stayed in touch, and then Tim and I went out to LA for a radio conference, and we ended up meeting him, having lunch, and so we just stayed in touch. But a couple times a year, I would just drop him an email. Hey, how you doing? Hey, good, whatever. But we never, that was the extent of it. We just never, we just stayed in touch. So flash forward to 2018, I was growing. I was growing in frustration because my favorite show, MASH, was not well represented in the podcast space. At the time, there was really only one other podcast, and it drove me up the wall listening to it, because I felt like these guys just didn't know what they were doing. Like it was like somebody who kind of likes the show is doing a podcast about a show, and it's like, okay. So I started thinking, I wonder if I could do a podcast about MASH. I wonder if what I don't know what it would be, but I wonder if I could do that. And so I dropped an email to Jeff Maxwell, again, who played Private Igor, the cook on MASH, and said, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. I said, would you be interested in being a guest? Or maybe we could do like a recurring segment or something like that. And he emailed me back and said, honestly, I'd like to do it with you.
Awesome.
And you could have picked me up off the floor. So then now all of a sudden it's turning into something completely different. And so we talked a few times on the phone and kind of, figured some stuff out. And then we just jumped in and we started doing this podcast. We do it twice a month, and it's called MASH Matters. And it's really kind of evolved into what it is now. But when we started, we weren't really sure what we were going to do. But it's really kind of fun. It's really turned into something special, because it's talking about a beloved show from the perspective of somebody who loves the show, who grew up as a huge fan of the show, and somebody who lived the show, who was a part of the show, who it was their job to go and be a part of that show. And so two completely different perspectives. We both love the show for completely different reasons. And Jeff, since he was on it, he never got into the minutia of it. He never, he doesn't come at it from like a fan. So he doesn't know the plot lines and the minor characters and these, the little intricacies that the fans love.
Yeah.
So but he can tell all the behind the scenes stories. He can tell us what was happening, at those moments. So so it turned into something very special, and we've been doing it since September of 2018. So we're coming up on 5 years. It's taken me places that I never thought I would go. I have talked to people who I never thought I would talk to be able to talk to all of the main surviving cast members, including Alan Alda, which is just unbelievable. I got to go to a Comic Con over in Indianapolis last year and moderate a Q&A with Loretta Swit and Jamie Farr and Jeff. And then we made that an episode of our podcast too. But I'm sitting on stage with these guys and talking to these people and meeting them, and then for the 50th anniversary of the premiere of the show, which was last September, Jeff and I actually were able to go out to Malibu Creek State Park, which is where they filmed the exterior shots of MASH, and be there for a 50th anniversary celebration. And we recorded live interviews with fans of the show there where it was filmed. And so I'm a goober from Southern Illinois. How the heck?
Yeah.
But it was that connection to Jeff years ago when I was working in radio. You never know when you're doing something right now. You never know until much later the connection you're making with somebody now, how it will affect your future. You have no idea. I had no clue that one morning show guest would now turn into something where I get to talk about my favorite show with somebody who was on the show, and we have a lot of people listening to it, and liking it and supporting us on Patreon, and they're a part of it too, because we will solicit listener questions, and we've got so many questions we're never going to get to because we just get inundated with them. We put out this week, just yesterday, Jeff and I recorded the next episode, and it's about least favorite episodes of MASH. What is your least favorite episode? We put out on social media on Friday, hey, what's your least favorite episode and why? Tell us. And by the time we recorded yesterday, we had about 600 or 700 different comments from people who had an opinion. and we can't use them all, but we were able to use some of them, and it just fosters that community. People feel like they're a part of it, and they feel like and so the podcast has kind of been cathartic for a lot of people, because the show is very special to some people, and just getting to talk to some of these people, and we've had several people who have passed away since we've spoken to them. That's very special to be able to know that we were able to give them kind of their last moment in the spotlight before they passed away. I have the guy who did the PA announcement, Sal Viscuso. He texts me all the time now. I mean, it's just a bizarre thing, And Braden, you're a big fan of Will Friedle, the actor Will Friedle from Boy Meets World. He reached out to us because he's a huge MASH fan, and he reached out to us telling us that our podcast is his favorite podcast.
Blew my. I listened to some of that, and I'm just. Yeah. And number one, hearing him talk to you, I was like a kid in a candy. I was like, oh my gosh, I know him, and he's talking to him.
But it's wild. It's wild to know that something that, a seed that was planted 20 years ago has turned into something very different and special now. And I'm just blessed to be a part of it, and a lot of it is just through the years I'm not a networker. I want you to know I am not a networker. I'm an introvert. When I go to a party, I'm in the corner,
right,
and hardly talking to anybody. Okay. So I'm not a schmoozer. I am not one to try to network with people and try to connect with them for, to get me down the road. It's just if I am really involved in something that I want to be involved with, I find people in those situations, those communities, they're also like-minded, and we connect. And sometimes those people open doors that you don't expect. And that's what happened here. I've gotten to do some really cool things and meet some really cool people. And it's just because I happen to be in the right place with the right mindset at the right time and showing a true appreciation for it, not just out there trying to schmooze and use it to my advantage.
That's awesome. Well, I mean, you just had a really good opportunity that Will Friedle actually had you come to watch a live taping of his podcast. Did you not?
Yeah. We went up to St. Louis a couple weeks ago, and the Pod Meets World podcast was up there at the pageant in St. Louis, and Will invited us to come up and sit in on the show, and then they had the meet and greet afterwards. And we purposely waited until the very end of the meet and greet, got at the end of the line, because first of all, we didn't pay for, the paying customers should go first. But it was really cool because we were able to just hang out there for about 15 minutes at the end there and just talk. And again, him introducing us to Topanga and Sean, saying this is the host of my favorite podcast, was bizarre. It's surreal. It really is.
And I've podcast for a while, and then I'm double jealous because you get to meet my childhood hero, who's also get to listen to the podcast that I also listen to, getting to meet all of them. But no, it's awesome. Like, I remember seeing the Facebook pictures, and I was like, oh my God, that man is.
And it all goes back to like what you were saying, like just how one thing can change so much. If you would have gone down the theater avenue and never done radio, where I was talking, it's a completely different thing, and it's another thing, like you said, you never know. Like I've told people too, like you never know who's someone's nephew or who's someone's cousin.
We
like
talked about that in the
we've
first
talked. You never know when somebody you've done something with is going to give you a text years down the line.
Yeah.
And it's like, and I was going to say another thing. I was going to ask you, who would have told you at 8 years old when you were crying in bed that you'd be working with some of those people? What would you have done?
Yeah.
Never would have dreamed of something like that happening. Never. I still can't figure out why it's happened, but it's happened, and I'm a part of it now. And I take that very, it's not something I take lightly. In fact, it can be a little daunting at times because there's a lot of responsibility with it. But it's right now I'm still enjoying it. Right. And if it becomes a burden, then that is a sign that it's time to move on and try something new. But right now, we're having a good time doing it. We're 108 episodes deep now, and so we're going to continue. We're going to continue as long as we can, until something stops us. We'll see what that is.
We know that you've done a lot of crazy stuff, and you've gotten to meet people and gotten to go all over the world. So with that being said, there's quite a collection behind you, and I wanted to talk to you about the type of collection you have, because you're posting it on Facebook a lot. I know you're a big baseball guy like me, even though the Cardinals are, not what they're normally at right now. So
no.
You maybe tell us a few of your favorite things in your collection, or maybe something that you would have never expected to have come across and you found somewhere or got.
So I have a couple of different kinds of collections. What you see behind me is just kind of really the tip of the iceberg. There's a closet over here. That's where everything is. So I collect autographs, and I've collected autographs since I was in junior high school. And the last time I tried to count, I think I have somewhere in the neighborhood of about 3,000 autographs in my collection. Now, some of them are nobody and they mean something to me, but most of, a lot of them are people you know. But I have been able to meet some really amazing people through radio and through the podcast and through some other people. And so I have my autograph collection. I also have that's my Cardinal collection over there. So I have a lot of like signed baseballs and things. And then this right here is my MASH collection, and that is growing. In fact, what you can't see is on the floor. My office is a mess right now, but what you can't see on the floor here is just boxes of stuff that I've added to my collection that I really don't have anywhere to put. So I've got to restructure some shelving and things here. But a couple of the things in my MASH collection that are special, one have been gifted to me. A couple of them have been gifted to me by Jeff. One is a call sheet. So that's when, they would put out a call sheet every day for the next day, so people knew what actors were called, what time they were called. And what I have is the original call sheet from the last day of filming of the entire series.
Wow.
So I have that. I also have a Tiffany and Company glass that has 4077 on it, which was a gift to the cast from Alan Alda. And Jeff gifted that to me. And then I bought in an auction, there's something called the Humanitas Prize, which is basically like the Pulitzer Prize for TV writing. And I have three trophies, three of the Humanitas trophies for the series MASH that belong to the writer Thad Mumford. So in my MASH collection, those are like the highlights. But yeah, the autograph collection, I have so many. There are some that are more important to me than others, but I have so many in my collection that it would be hard to. Although I will say that my favorite movie of all time is Ghostbusters, and I have a little Ghostbusters collection over here too on the shelving. And years ago, the Illinois Broadcasters Association inducted Bill Murray into their Hall of Fame, and I was able to go to the awards ceremony because I was a part of the. I had some commercials that were up for awards that year, and we were able to go to the Hall of Fame dinner, and so I got to meet Bill Murray and get his autograph, because he's a hard autograph to get. So that's probably one that's going to be in at least the top 5 for me of my autographs. I have a Ghostbusters photo signed by him, and I have a photo of him and he and I together, and he's leaning on me. That was an interesting night. I was so dumb with I don't know what I said to him, but I'm sure I sounded like an idiot because I have no clue what I said to him. But he was very nice and gracious, and was able to sign something, which he doesn't always do.
Oh, that's great. So, I mean, we're at a point now to where we're gonna have to start wrapping things up because we're at about that hour. But I mean, with you, I feel like we could go on for about 3 hours, 6 hours if we wanted to catch up.
Hey, I'll come back sometime. Hey, down the road, we'll do part 2 sometime.
We'll have to bring you back for sure, because there's a lot more that, and with the way, I mean, MASH is growing too. So, I mean, with things that are going on, there's a lot more we'll be able to talk about down the road, I'm sure. Yeah.
And it was just great seeing you guys, because, I mean, with Paxton, with you being away, and I don't know if we'll ever have a chance to work on stage again. I hope maybe someday we will, but it's just great to see you guys, and I encourage you to keep going with this. And we were kind of talking beforehand, but podcasting there's a lot to it. You kind of talked about that with radio, but there are people who listen to podcasts. I don't know if they fully understand how much work goes into a podcast. So when you're hearing that, you just know that there are hours and hours and hours of work before and after going into this one little episode that you're listening to, and including this episode of this podcast right here. So I commend you guys for giving it a go.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, I was going to say, the first thing actually right before we left, when you gave us our compliment after like our first or second episode, I was like, that's a big compliment.
We were like, Ryan told us we did a good job.
So we felt good about that.
I will tell you though, I was a little concerned because, you had your first podcast, which, Braden was your guest. And then you had your second podcast, your friend, I'm sorry, her name is.
Yeah.
She was your guest. And then Marcia was your third guest. But it seemed like every time you had a guest on, that person stuck around to co-host with you. So I was a little concerned that I was now going to be expected to join the hosting team of the podcast.
I will say, some of my 2 biggest mentors are Howard Stern and Conan, and they tend to add people with them. So I just kind of absorbed that with I like the vibe you're staying in. That's how it goes. So.
Well, Ryan, thank you again for joining us on this amazing day.
I appreciate it.
Yeah. hopefully we get to have some more opportunities with you in the future.
I hope so. Be well, guys.
You too.
Thank you.
Have a good one.